What is up, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today I will be showing you guys my first ever PC build. Let's get it. Now, I have absolutely zero experience with any PC parts, but after watching hours of PC Builder and Jay's 2 cents, I was pretty confident with the parts I used for this build. If it looks like I did anything wrong or could do some steps better in this build, let me know down in the comments because I'll definitely be doing another build down the road. Starting off with the motherboard, I went with the MSI B550M Pro VDH Wi-Fi. I found this particular board on eBay for $75, which was right in my budget. The CPU I decided to pair it off with was the Ryzen 5 5600, which luckily didn't require any flashing of the BIOS. Now, the 5600 comes with that stock AMD Wraith cooler, but in this case I wanted to go with the Vetru V5 Air Tower cooler to get a little more airflow. Installation was pretty simple, just attach the mounting brackets with whatever card you have, and then it can be connected to the motherboard. My camera went out as I installed that M.2, but I went with the Western Digital Blue 500 gig SN570 NVMe. The RAM I used in this build is a special case as it came from a bundle from a friend with the power supply and a couple case fans. This RAM is 32 gigs of 3200 CL16, which should be just enough in this case because I like to play a lot of Star Citizen. Once that's all in, we can move on to the case. The case I used for this build is the NZXT H510 Flow. It's a pretty solid case and it's got lots of room. I could definitely see myself using it for some future builds as well. Low key, laying down that motherboard was one of the hardest parts of the build for some reason. It just wouldn't seat right, so it took a couple of tries to put it in. And then to finish off the CPU cooler, I went ahead and threw on that fan that it came with. The cooler also came with an extra set of fan mounting clip, so I ended up using one of these ID cooling fans to conveniently turn it into one of those dual fan coolers and get a little extra airflow. For the graphics card, I went with an RX 6600 brand new from Best Buy. For my research, I found that this would be a pretty solid 1080p card, so I figured I'd take a chance on it. Now, the second part of that homie bundle included a 3-pack of these 140mm Corpoon RGB fans, which I use for the front panel to be my intakes. Before I put them in, I'm taking a quick look to make sure everything's looking good and route these cables. For a little extra RGB in the case, I went ahead and got this light strip and put it around the motherboard. It's a little 550mm strip. Before I move on to the back, I got these Asia Horse sleeve cable extensions for the power supply to give it a little cleaner look. In this case, I just needed that 8-pin PCI cable, 24-pin motherboard cable, and that 8-pin CPU cable. Here's how it looks when it's all routed and in place. I went ahead and put the last two ID cooling fans in and then turned my attention to the back to install the power supply and get on that cable management. The power supply was the final part of that homie bundle, just a simple 500 watt EVGA power supply, which after a bit of research I found should be good enough for this build. This does however limit some potential upgrade paths for other components, because if I do get some upgrades, I'll need to get a whole new power supply, but you know, you learn as you go, and I wouldn't mind having it as a backup for another project. And I have a bunch of extra hard drives laying around, so I went ahead and popped in a 1TB and 500 gig disk drive to fill in those spots in the back. I also went ahead and added a 3TB Western Digital Blue drive into that drive bay on the bottom, and this will give me plenty of storage to save all my movies and my games. And moving on to that sweet cable management, I learned it's probably best to have at least an idea of how you're going to do it so you don't get overwhelmed if it's your first time. I didn't have any patience since the end of the build was around the corner, so I really just slapped it together and hoped for the best. It all fit in pretty well in the end, so I can't complain too much. Now I just got to connect these antennas, close it up, and pray that it turns on. First try, let's go. Now I gotta make sure it's actually posting. Let me clean up a little bit and we'll see how the finished product looks. Overall, I think this build turned out pretty good. If I could do it again, I'd probably get a full-size motherboard to fill out that bottom and hold off on a couple accessories to maybe get a higher tier graphics card. I'll end up running a few benchmarks in another video, but as of right now, I'm pretty satisfied with the results. Again, if you guys have any build tips or upgrade suggestions, definitely let me know down in the comments, as this will most likely become a prominent side hobby for me in the coming months. If you also enjoyed this build, drop a like and spam that subscribe button to really help out the channel. I'll have some more coming soon, so stay tuned and I'll catch you guys later.